What's up, everyone? Andy here. And today I'm going to be doing an exclusive video for MST Systems. Shane Germain is the owner and founder of MST Systems, as an incredible athlete, tremendous coach, and close personal friend of mine whom I respect very, very much. If you have a moment, make sure you go ahead and follow MST Systems on any platform like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Go on the website, reach out to Shane somehow, and give him an open ear for what he has to say. I guarantee he has something that you can learn. So today, we're going to be covering my specific generalized concepts for approaching modern day injuries that occur in the tin slinging culture. So what I mean is, the injuries that occur when we are lifting weights are very different, even if we're talking about the same exact injury mechanism of action and even range of motion, than in what we call quote unquote real sports. So for example, if you have a slap tear when you're a swimmer, it's very, very different than the same exact tear occurring in someone doing an axle overhead press that, if you have that tear, you most likely missed the lift. So, if that's the case, the reason it's so different is because the velocity, the load, and the tissue and environment associated with that injury is going to require different things for it to repair back to, and hopefully over time, better than before. Especially than the swimmer who's going to be doing things, just so you guys understand a bit better, through larger ranges of motion, with greater velocity, with greater consistency, reps, ranges of motion that are a bit more dangerous, even though there's less load. So the forces are the same, but all the fiber and biological contexts associated with that injury are completely different. So they're both dangerous within their own respects, but they're totally different worlds to dive into when we talk about recovery. So first and foremost, what we want to do is going to be facilitate the immune system. What that means is support it, give it the tools to do its job better. What we do not want is something like, say, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Now, this might give you some very acute benefits, which is great if you have to perform the next day in a competition. If you get injured on day one of a 2 or 3 day show, go ahead and blast the NSAIDs. However, that's very rare. Most of the time, you want to create an environment where you can get back to the ultimate recovery quicker, and you're going to sacrifice the potential instant gratification that comes along with NSAIDs, reducing swelling right away, and all those things. Again, this video is about the concepts. So, some supplements you would want to look into to support and facilitate the immune system when it comes to recovery, rather than inhibit it with things like NSAIDs, we would look into injectable glutathione. If we want to look down the oral route, this is where you would look into specific dosages of things like curcuminoids, of things like astaxanthin, and any other real estate specific antioxidant that you feel you need based on your injury. The next world we want to dive into is the myological one, meaning the muscle cells and the local musculature relative to the injury. So this is where we have to go back to that example of the swimmer and the axle overhead press. So what is involved? At what speed, range of motion, how much force was applied to the injury when it happened, and furthermore, what type of muscle fibers are involved? Was this done under a very ATP hydrolytic, high force, high contraction environment? Or was it done through more of an overuse mechanism, where you just did so many thousands of reps that the local structure is giving out, where versus in a type 2 muscle fiber based injury, we might see something that has more to do with cellular and neurological damage. That leads me into the final point of neurological restoration and learning. I'm going to pair the potential supplements for neurological and myological restoration through injury together, because they often are synonymous in the tin slinging community, which is not always the case in other sports. When it comes to the neurological portion, what's most important is not just returning to normal use and sensation and all those things, but it's allowing that motor pattern to be fluid, to be coordinated, and to be refined so that you can do it again and again and again with the same pattern early on so that you avoid things like injury positional stiffness. So when you were injured, it put you in a position, the key term, that you had inhibited range of motion or any issues like that. So we want to make sure that your brain feels safe. This is actually the number one way to ameliorate pain. 9 times out of 10, the clientele I deal with that have pain are dealing with sensory issues, which is AKA the brain, through afferent and efferent speaking to the environment internally and externally, whereas a myological injury would typically be more structural and I said cellular based, and in that case, that's very, very specific. And that's, again, only 1 out of 10 times do I really see that being the issue. So, when we're diving into the myological world, this is the valid application for BPC 157. This is the valid application for maybe doing a set of 20 to 50 very, very slow, minimally loaded tempo reps on the muscle group, whether it be something as simple as contraction and flexion, or flexion and extension rather, while the group is at rest, or it could be something fully compounded like a bodyweight squat. Regardless what you may need, doing that 2 to 3 times a day and constantly stimulating local growth hormone analogs in a proper way. So this is also where blood flow restriction training comes into play. That is how you're going to restore the local musculature and cellular needs for injury recovery. Lastly, when we come to the neurological world, this is where we're looking to alter your bioenergetics favorably and allow you to do things from a form, technique, and speed-based perspective to get back to play, to get back to training or competition, whatever it may be, quicker. So this might be novel in the sense of this is where I apply nootropics. This is where I apply things like Noopept to specific training with meditation and confidence. And anecdotally, this is where a proper dose of very fast-acting insulin has its play because of what it does to brain-derived neurotrophic factor and how it suppresses TNF-alpha. These are very, very specific learning-based environments that we need for our brain to go through this process of, turning iron red hot to mold it to how we want it to be. This is how form is created in our brain. The neurons that get wired together and coordinated get to a red hot or long-term potentiation state, and then that red hot state was significant enough that it becomes an easier thing to do next time. And then to improve your form even greater, you got to get back to that red hot state, but more specifically with a different change. So, taking your glutathiones, taking your BPC 157s, and taking your specific and periodized return to lifting approaches are how I deal with the modern day injury.